What's going on, guys? Welcome to Critics Talk. I'm Klep, and I'm here with a powerful team up right now. Dinesh Shamdasani and director Dave Wilson. And tell these people what you guys are working on right now, because this is big news, and I think this is going to be a big deal next year with February, right?
February.
Who wants to do the honor?
All right, Dave is the director of Bloodshot, and I'm the producer. Bloodshot is a film from Sony Pictures with Vin Diesel. This guy just walked literally in front of your frame. That's amazing. New York Comic Con coming out in February.
It happens. So, all right, so so Bloodshot, we know about Bloodshot, Valiant Comics. Dave, tell us how you became a part of this whole thing that's going on right now, and talk about how you guys put Vin Diesel in place of this.
Sure. I think this was sort of middle 2017, and my agent brought me a script, and I read it, and I'm not, I love comic books, but I'm a big science fiction fan, right? I read a lot of both. But there's a sort of subset of science fiction I love, like more than anything. I sort of coined science fact, right? Which is, this is Michael Crichton, Daniel Suarez, and what I loved about them, and I found the same thing in the Bloodshot comics too, is that there's this sort of technological grounding to a lot of the concepts that they present in their stories. Like, I love that there were three things that attracted me to Bloodshot. One was this aspect of a superhero as a sort of technologically powered superhero, in that I could find some grounding and believability behind like where those power sets came from. And then also there's a sort of very manipulative quality to the character, like who Bloodshot is, what he's struggling against, and then sort of those two things combined, there was the sort of thematic aspect to the, and you're going to figure this out by the end of your interview, that I'm a giant fucking nerd, and there's this idea of what I like, and what I pitched Dinesh and Sony about the film, which was this concept of the illusion of choice in when faced with a society rampant with technology, right? And I felt like, in other words, like if like you Google the answer to something, or you're swiping left and right on Tinder, or Waze tells you which way to drive, like there are algorithms and companies and corporations like giving us a full sense of agency in our lives over the choices that we make. The real choice is like distilling those thousands of options down into a 3-menu list. And I really felt like Bloodshot was the personification of that dilemma that faces us today. I mean, like, now, like, that's like the TED Talk version of the movie, which no one will show up to see. But I think you have to have a reason for telling a story, and that was what was at the sort of thematic heart of this film. And then, to be honest, like, I fucking love 80s and 90s. I'm sorry, I swear a lot. My mother's gonna love 80s and 90s action films, and like RoboCop was a big sort of tonal criterion for like where this movie exists. I just love how personal those stories were. It was like hard-hitting action, but with a real personal story at its heart. It's not like some big world-saving event or intergalactic battle. It's just one man fighting to sort of regain control of his life, and all of that was why, like, I was like in on the concept, on the movie, on what we were going to do together. And then when Vin came along, that was. I try not to ascribe myself to like, okay, this is who I want the movie to, because the truth is, like, casting is a precarious process. But when someone like Vin comes along, like, it is like such a big piece of the puzzle that like it was, in like an amazing day pitching him and getting him excited about the project. And when like he fell into place, like we sort of rearranged parts of the project to cater to like an actor of his caliber and his fan base and all of that. And once he once he saw what he could do with the character and how it's different to what he's already done, like, it was sort of all off to the races.
Now, speaking of like Vin being a part of this, I know Dinesh, you're familiar with the fandom that comics can bring to these movies, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he was always like a fan casting of this character, right?
I think he was, if not the number one, certainly if he's not the number one, he was up there in terms of fan favorites all time to play this character.
So did that play a part in you guys, seeking out? Like, was there anyone else up for this role before Vin, or anyone that was maybe?
Yeah, no, look, you go through a whole process, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen. The studio obviously gets a say, but I can tell you from my standpoint, right when we started this, our producing partners on this are Neil Moritz at Original Film, and they do the Fast and Furious films. And part of when I was CEO Valiant, part of my crossing my fingers was if I partner with these guys, maybe we get Vin down the road. And it was nice to be at the end of the road, and there it is, Vin Diesel's Bloodshot.
You don't want to try not to get hopeful or excited about those things or hinge it all happening on it, but when it does happen, it's a pretty great day. And the process of like when I pitched to Vin what we wanted to do with the film, I think there was the LA fires were going on, and like a lot of the schools were closed, so his 9-year-old son was with him the day I sort of walked him through the film, and we had the artwork up and the books were on the table and the statues and standees. It was like a mini convention in our office, and at the end of the like hour-long conversation about it, like they were leaving the room, and his son Vincent like tugged him on the shirt and was like, "Daddy, I really want you to be Bloodshot." And I was like, "Oh, we're in." And it was, it's amazing because like his brother, Vin's brother, who's his age, and his 9-year-old son were both equally enthusiastic about the movie. And I think if you're an actor and like it's that transcendent that a 9-year-old boy and a like 50-year-old man are like, "Oh man, that's awesome." Like I think you kind of go like, "Hang on, this is special." So yeah.
No, I was just saying there's something here. I was echoing. I'm the Flavor Flav right now, man. I'm just like, yeah, boy.
Now, we had an awesome. I mean, thanks to you, Dinesh. We had an awesome opportunity to see the trailer, and I got to tell you that it looks very.
You've seen the trailer?
I have.
I know nothing about it.
Oh yeah. Oh, then I must have found something on the deep dark web. It was more than awesome and very stylish. What were some of your influences as far as like other, like I just can't even explain the things that I was seeing.
I haven't seen the trailer that you are talking about because there isn't one yet. But I can tell you what my influences were. As much as I love like those 80s, 90s films I talked about, like there's one filmmaker that I've adored, and I've seen all of his movies, and that's Tony Scott. Tony had this sort of incredible visceral energy to the films he made, but they never sort of let go. They were always driven by characters, whether it was like I love True Romance as much as I love Top Gun, as much as I loved like Man on Fire. They were like gritty action movies, like with real character-driven dramas at its heart. But he had a filmmaking style that I think was like undeniable. Like, I mean, if you go and look at movies before and after Top Gun, and look at what changed, right? And just and every movie, I feel like he tried something different and he pushed something new, but like you always felt like you were on this cinematic roller coaster with his films. And when I came onto this, I was always like, I wonder if he was still around and he was still making movies, like what would his version of a comic book movie look like? And that was like my North Star. In fact, a lot of my crew actually came from his films. And so in terms of visuals, like look, like a lot of the comic book tenets are there. Obviously, there's the Bloodshot look, but I want to find a real physiological reason for him looking the way he looks. But in terms of like the filmmaking style, like very heavily in the sort of Tony Scott vein of filmmaking.
Now, like other, bigger like blockbuster superhero type movies, will it be heavy in CGI, or is it a lot more practical, or action movie like?
It's a little of both, to be honest. Like even though I sort of have a fairly extensive visual effects background, it wasn't like, all right, that's how I want to do it. I want to like lean into the CG spectacle of it all. I personally prefer practical filmmaking and effects. There's an inherent fidelity to making movies that way that is almost prohibitively expensive to achieve in visual effects. But I also want to, I want to. The concept should drive the methodology and not the other way around. And there are quite a few action set pieces in the film, but there are two of the larger ones. One is almost 90% practical. I found this. I knew I needed like a certain action sequence to play out a certain way, but I wanted a setting for it to take place and that felt unique and you'd never seen before. I feel like action is one thing, but creating something inventive that people haven't seen before, like you want as an action filmmaker, you want people to end up kind of going like, oh man, you remember that scene in Old Boy in the hallway with the hammer, or you remember that scene in The Raid in the kitchen with the fucking Salat knives or whatever. Like you want those moments where like they're iconic, right? So I found this Russian dashboard video, and I was like, of something happening, and I was like, I want to make a whole set piece around that, like, and then we set about making that, and that's a big practical action set piece that was very uncomfortable to film, but like spectacular, and like it was so uncomfortable in there that I was like, Vin's never gonna do this. I'm like, he's gonna come in here, we're all wearing fucking hazmat masks, and like he's gonna just be like, To his like credit, like we rolled one take, it looked so amazing, the crew went crazy, and he stayed for 3 days and shot this sequence like that. I never like looks amazing. That's a big practical set piece, and then like there's a big sort of set piece at the end of the movie that is very reliant on visual effects. But that's simply because like from a like logistics and safety point of view, I could never put people in that predicament. So it's still very real and realistic looking. It's just like where it's taking place, like no one would ever let me do. So those are the sort of, so it's a little bit of both.
So it sounds like this is going to be a very, 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 very action-packed movie. And with that, Valiant is known for having as many characters. Are we looking at maybe a Valiant cinematic universe or any kind of expansion to this?
Well, listen, first, in terms of the action, it is a very action-packed movie. Dave is right. There are two showstoppers. You're lucky if you have one showstopper in a movie. Dave has built two. But it's also, and this is, I think, very Valiant, it's very emotional, it's very character-driven, and there's a sophistication to the storytelling that I think is a bit subversive in the way that it embraces the genre that I think will be really, really exciting. In terms of the larger cinematic universe, look, when I was at Valiant and I had my team, Warren Simons, Hunter Goranson, the guys that were working on the films and TV with me, the shared universe was incredibly important for us to bring to the cinematic universe. It doesn't seem that it's the same level of importance to the current management of Valiant. They've moved Harbinger from Sony, where we've done Bloodshot, to Paramount. It's unfortunate because we were very focused on making Bloodshot, and right as we were getting to the tail end of it, and we knew we had something special, we started building a coda for the end of Bloodshot that would have included Harada and introduced the Harbinger world, and it was awesome, and Vin loved it, and even at one day practically performed it for us. Not on the cards anymore, and I think it'll be unlikely for us to have a Valiant shared universe at this point. But that's okay. If the movie works, and we're lucky enough to get a sequel, there's plenty to mine. Jeff Lemire, Matt Kent, a bunch of great writers. Dwayne Sadinsky, Josh Dysart have given us a lot of great ideas to mine from the comics. And we have a lot of talented people like Eric Kaiser and Dave Wilson to come up with new cool stuff, man.
Absolutely, and you never know what the future will hold, because I mean, if two big guys like Sony and Marvel can have a marriage, you never know. When can we expect, one, the trailer, and when can we expect this film?
The film is February 21st next year. The trailer, I'm not so sure about.
I don't know, man. All I can say is I'm very excited for Arnold in Terminator Dark Fate. I'm gonna be there. I suggest you guys are there too.
I'm definitely gonna check it out. Guys, I want to thank you guys.
So you should be going to watch Terminator anyway and support Arnold and Tim and all those folks.
I mean, it's a great story and franchise anyways, to check it out, right? I want to thank you guys for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, David. Dinesh, did I get that right?
Yeah, perfect.
Look at that. Guys, clap for Critics Talk. We are out, guys. Make sure you guys stay tuned and check out everything at critics.com. We are critics.com for everything Bloodshot, because we're going to be giving it to you all. Peace.